Hi, welcome to another consonant analysis. My analysis today is on the subject of J.K. Rowling, the famous authoress. The extracts that I'm looking at is the first line of her first Harry Potter book, the Philosopher's Stone. And what I decided to do, as I mentioned in my previous video, which was on the subject of Elvis and his last words, is that in addition to doing a playlist or a range of videos on the subject of last words, as I did with Elvis Presley, I've also decided to do a playlist on the subject of first lines, i.e. the first lines of like famous written works. So in this case, I'm choosing J.K. Rowling, which has probably got like popular appeal. She's a very well-known person, and somebody that people can relate to. Looking on her Wikipedia page, you sort of like get a full account of practically everything that's happened in her life, and it's quite an interesting story. And that's sort of like what brings me on to this analysis today, because if you read her analysis, if you look at my analysis, it's quite amazing how that actually parallels what actually went on in her life, from getting her first divorce to becoming I think she's probably a billionaire-ess, isn't she? A billionaire-ess author. So yeah, it's quite amazing. And anyway, I'll stop rabbiting and get onto the analysis. So the first line of this particular piece that J.K. Rowling has written, The Philosopher's Stone, is Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4 Privet Drive were proud to say that they were perfectly normal. Thank you very much. And me personally, I think, as I go on to say in the notes, I think it's a bit strange the way that that's constructed, given where it occurs in the book and what the book is about. But anyway, we'll get onto that. So I've decided to do what's called a reverse analysis. If you're new to my channel, reverse analysis is where I basically extract the consonants out of somebody's speech, and basically I reverse them, and then I proceed to analyse them 3 consonants at a time. In each consonant is what I call a marker that I look for in a source reference in order to derive the meaning of that particular set of consonants. So the context of this report is the first line of the book. This is the first line of the book, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, authored by J.K. Rowling, which obviously we know. And as a summary interpretation, what I put is the author writes a potted autobiography, equivocally encapsulated in the first line of her first published works. And this word equivocal, it means it's like obscure, it's not clear, it's not exact, it's not, we're not sure what's going on. And that seems to be a theme, throughout the analysis, but also perhaps throughout the rest of her works, because I have produced other analyses which I haven't actually mentioned here, which I'll go on to later in other videos, where this is actually a theme, equivocation. As far as I can see, anyway, looking at the results of the analysis, it's like she's saying something, but she's not really saying. She's alluding to it, or she's talking in some sort of like some other language. She's trying to obfuscate or talk about something, but by other means, so you don't really know what she's talking about. You get a different impression. So in the rest of this analysis, as I proceed, what I intend to do is go through a detailed analysis of go through a detailed interpretation of the analysis. I mean, I've just given you the summary interpretation, and that means that I'll go through the extracts phrase by phrase. And if you want to know what I mean, in the description below, there's a link to this report that I'm actually reading from and taking you through, and you can see that the extract is actually coloured with different colours, the sort of different blocks of text. And what I've done is I've analysed those, as a block based on the markers. That's the three consonant blocks that are actually at the end of the report. And that's just basically so you don't actually have to go through the markers and interpret them yourself. But more than you're more than free to do so. Obviously, at your own leisure. So what I intend to do with the interpretation is the detailed interpretation is because it's cut into like three. Each interpretation of each block is cut into like three parts. There's telling you what the block is about, what the interpretation is about, which block it refers to, the actual interpretation, and then how that refers to the block of words. But to make it less boring, what I intend to do is read all of the interpretations out together, like as a story, and then go back and read all of how the interpretations match each one of the blocks of words as a complete narrative as well. So I'll be giving you two narratives, and then what you can do is you can actually go into the report yourself and actually read them as they're actually properly written, bit by bit and broken up. And then finally, what I intend to do is go through themes. Themes are keywords that I've pulled out of the source markers at the back of the report, just to make it more digestible and easy for you to actually understand. So you don't actually have to go through the markers, but you can do if you like. And the reason why you don't have to go through the markers is because I've provided all of the keywords. And if you do decide to go through the markers at the end of the report, the themes will actually prep you and act as sort of like as a roadmap for what you're going to be looking at. Anyway, so to proceed on to the detailed interpretation, like I said, I'm going to go through my interpretation of each one of the phrases, and then you can go through them, at your leisure, and see which blocks of words they refer to. So here we go. The subject is looking back on her recent life situation. I've suffered a catastrophic loss. I am unsure of myself. I now have to provide for my family. It's a bewildering situation. I have to pick up the pieces of my life. I have an idea that will help me, but I feel that I lack the strength to carry it out, although I feel for certain that it is a certainty. So that is what I must aim for. I must work on bit by bit and keep it under wraps until I am ready to present the complete thing. Until then, I'll carry on relaxed in the knowledge that this will ultimately give me strength. I will write about a famous person who was born and selected among people for a distinguishing quality and distribute it among the publishing houses in order to get a publishing offer. And what I'll say at this point is, if you actually go onto J.K. Rowling's Wikipedia page, it actually sort of like parallels what I'm actually reading here. How she basically, she had a failed marriage that she tried to make work. She had a small child out of it. She was in the process of writing a book as a get out policy. She returned to England. I carried on writing the piece, the book, and then obviously she published it and became famous. And at one point, her husband came and tried to take her daughter, but was subsequently unsuccessful. So moving on to the next interpretation. I need to get away and be left alone to continue my work so that I can become accustomed to a pattern of working. I need to train myself. I'm pliant enough to be able to handle that. I need flexibility. He comes to take his daughter back. The subject tries to get away, i.e. J.K. Rowling tries to get away. She succeeds, and in the intervening time, she grows and develops and continues to raise her daughter. Although from time to time, only momentarily, she entertains doubts about her own abilities to carry on. And then she goes on to say, I'm interpreting, at the moment I've got to the point where I feel weak. The thought of the work that lies ahead and the hurdles to overcome, the possibility of failure, of not being accepted, makes me feel that there is no hope in continuing. But that won't stop me. I'm going to carry on writing bit by bit, sparing no effort until I've amassed a manuscript. And that's one of the things those are sort of like two of the themes that come out about pliancy and determination, which you'll actually read in the markers. You're reading the themes. They're sort of like two themes which sort of like span through the story, and seem to span between her being a person in her own right, as a mother, an author, and all the other hats that she wears. That's what basically helped her to keep it together. She was pliant and determined. I feel that things have gone full circle and I'm back on track. I'm back where I was, a single, independent woman. How far I've come from being tracked down and almost on the brink of having to give up my daughter, putting away my manuscript as I wrote page by page, line by line, as things got steadily worse. And the thing is, when she actually got back to England from, where she'd been, she'd actually got 3 chapters, so it's as though she was actually planning well before she actually left. It wasn't like she came to England and started writing. She actually had a plan in mind and she was carrying it out. Through dedication and discipline, I've escaped a bad situation and managed to produce a self-contained work which equivocally talks about my own experience. So equivocally means she's saying it in a roundabout term, or she's not being clear about it. In this case, it's all about Harry Potter, but it's not really. When you look behind the analysis, it's actually J.K. Rowling. I've managed to turn it to my advantage while bringing up my daughter at the same time. It's now on everyone's lips and it fulfills a dream. It more than covers my financial need, and with its completion, it allows me the opportunity to take a well-earned rest. I've set a boundary between myself and my former partner, and life, and I've let bygones be bygones. So there is this reference to forgiveness. That's occurs twice in the markers. I've done more than I have to make this relationship work. In order to move on and flourish, I have to admit that the relationship has failed. I've been charitable enough. Now I have to explain that the marker's actually going in reverse, so it's like the story's going in reverse. And, she's actually... What we're actually talking about here is where the marriage, it's not actually working. We're sort of like working back towards where she first started from. The subject's husband does not accept the situation, but despite this, the subject's plans become more focused and crystallized in her mind. While her current relationship disintegrates into fragments, she sees her writing as a new beginning. Although having been wronged, oppressed and treated unjustly, she continues to quadruple, produce more and more material towards her final work. And she says, as I continue to sit here, the situation's getting more muddled day by day. The subject decides to get away, to escape. She spits and relegates her abuser to oblivion, to be forgotten. The relationship had now become spoiled, and now she was rolling out a new path for herself. Little did she know that one day soon, through her relating her experience, she would derive great benefit from her endeavours. Like a phoenix rising from the ashes, her experience would become, in hindsight, a great benefit to her, and indeed it was. When the trumpet of her success was blown, it came as a great surprise to her. Overnight, she sold more copies of her book than she could have ever believed, and throughout everything, she still continued to raise her daughter. She has managed to express her experience in equivocal terms through the pages of a book, and in doing so outsmart her abuser. As she looked around her, she felt giddy with joy. And then finally, I'm working hard, but the whole situation is not working out. I'm tired of it all. The guy that I'm married to is a low, despicable person who is overbearing and beating me. I've put my all into this marriage and put up with more than is necessary. And so I put, the subject escapes to find a place where she can feel human, where people are regular people, where she can feel confident. One night, her idea crystallizes. She surreptitiously enacts her plan and makes a clean getaway. Her secretiveness is justified given the circumstances. The iron cuts the iron, as they say. So she finally gets retribution, she gets away. And it's the situation that forces that, so she fights back and takes her leave. So now going back over the detailed analyses, but looking at how the interpretation of each phrase matches the actual phrase itself. So I'll just read those out, and then what you can do is you can go through the report and see what the words or the phrases actually were. So I've got, the subject is appreciative at having found a means to alleviate her situation. Thank you very much, she says. The subject takes everything in her stride and continues in a composed manner. The word perfectly, this word covers the marker 1920-1002, which is wholly concerned with raising and educating a child, so perfect. she's perfectly looked after a child. You know exactly what a mother should do. The author has already amassed a sizable part of her manuscript pages, i.e. they were already in existence. She'd already done valid work. She must now continue to amass more. In her relief and adulation at selling her first book, the subject looks back, having said that, or to say that, she has been a success. She reflects or goes back on how it all started, going full circle. And this is one of the themes that comes out about things being circular, and it's something that's actually, if you pay attention to the Prisoner of Azkaban, it's a motif which is highly used in that particular film. The subject is proud of her achievement. She uses the word for privet drive. So 4 refers to the increase of pages in the manuscript, which were the subject during the escape. In fact, actually, in comments, I actually mentioned that the actual marker that's covered with the word for is in the source reference is to quadruple. So quadruple and 4, it's just uncanny that they actually match up. Privet refers to secretly harbouring a desire to escape. And drive refers to the current situation which has an impetus or driving force for the escape. So for privet drive is about the pages of the book providing the impetus to escape, because now she's got some reason, she's got actually something to roll with. Marker 41222 is covered by the phrase privet drive, which sits at the centre of the extract, and its components are divided between there being an auspicious beginning and breaking into fragments and disintegrating. The marker is actually half and half. One half is the components are about auspicious beginning, and the others are about fragmenting and disintegrating. As though this is a turning point in the whole story, from one time drawing to a close and a new dawn being ushered in. So it's actually central. If you look in the extracts, the green portion is actually central. It's actually in the middle. The phrase Mr. and Mrs. Dursley. How the interpretation fits the word. The subject is referring to herself and her abusive partner, and it does come across when you actually, if you go back and actually read the interpretation and look at the markers, it's like Mr. and Mrs. Dursley is J.K. Rowling and the person that she was married to. So moving on to comments, that was interpretation, detailed interpretation, broken down into the interpretations and how the interpretations fit the various phrases. So in comments, this is where I just highlight any other points that I've noticed as I've been going through the analysis. So at number 1, rotation circles, that's in marker 2808, 2710 or marker 2829. This is a prominent motif in the camera's movements, scenery, special effects and props in The Prisoner of Azkaban, which is film 5, I believe, in the series. Especially in terms of time and the clock, marker 28. It also seems to form a central theme in the interpretation of this analysis, with the subject looking back on her life at the pivotal moment she becomes a success. So halfway through the analysis, what you'll find is that the markers seem to go back on the same subject, of how she was. And I can only interpret that as she's actually looking back on how she was compared to how she is now. The manuscript came at her darkest hour and was the source of her raising from the ashes. As one life came to an end, another one was growing. And you could say there's a parallel with the Order of the Phoenix, because that's another of her films. I think that comes after Goblet of Fire, so it's number 7, I believe. And, there is reference to raising from the ashes. Actually, Dumbledore, one of the lead characters, he's actually got a bird, a phoenix, which Harry Potter witnesses actually bursting into flames and turning to ashes and then resurrecting from the ashes in Dumbledore's study. The manuscript came at her darkest hour. This is reminiscent of The Prisoner of Azkaban, where Hermione and Harry go back to the past to relive and correct a situation so that 2 lives may be spared. Now, the 2 lives that may be spared, is she referring to her and her daughter? It's a strong possibility. This marker seems to be the epitome of her experience and the outline for the plot of Azkaban. So I'm not actually talking about that. I do actually go on to talk about Azkaban in a later video, which I've got lined up, where I take an extract from there. And again, the same motif comes across, which is that it's basically an allegory of J.K. Rowling's life. Comment 2, travel by night. This is marker 50. This has a parallel with Muhammad, who at the lowest ebb of his ministry was taken on a night journey to the highest place. That's a story I've read about Muhammad, and it strongly parallels with that. You know, he went through such hardship and sorrow, and at his lowest ebb, then he was picked up and taken on this miraculous night journey to the highest place. Comment 3, Dursley. Rowling was born in Yates, which is nearby Dursley, a market town in Gloucestershire, and where it's rumoured that Shakespeare spent several years working as a school teacher. Interestingly, while in the analysis Joanne tends to write an equivocal autobiography, with you getting only her, when I'm doing the analysis, it's just basically about her. There's nothing really about what she's talking about, the Dursleys and Harry Potter and Privet Drive. There's none of that, nothing about houses and people. It's all about her situation. So, although with her autobiography, you just get, with her writing, you get only her. With Shakespeare, what I've found is he writes specifically about the characters, and there seems to be no mention of himself. Like, with analysis, what you tend to find is that sometimes you get something from the author's lives or the people's lives. This is how we pull out things, from like criminals and these types of people, because they say things, they say specific things, and when you look at the markers, there's specific things behind those, and you think, that points to something, that points to something in that specific situation that links them to that. But with William Shakespeare, from my experience, although it's limited, you don't get that. You literally just get the characters. He's literally telling a story. Comment 4. This is actually on the word for as well. In the phrase for Privet Drive, the word for falls on the marker that includes the component to quadruple. Quadruple is like making something into 4. Comment 5. Thanks. So she actually uses the word thanks. In my view, the phrase "thank you very much" is rather colloquial and seems out of place at the beginning of a text. An introduction is usually indicative as to what follows. This is for didactic writing, i.e. writing that's supposed to tell you about what is to come later. So basically what she's done is this is another thing that adds sort of like the notion that she's actually writing about herself, because what she does is she says thank you very much. It's actually obviously in the first line of the Philosopher's Stone, and it's very unusual. It's very twee. Normally, if you're introducing something, you're talking more formal terms, and you don't really add anything in there, which is you could say colloquial. Thank you very much is rather colloquial. It's sort of like it's a phrase which people would use as an expression. It's not really actually trying to tell you something. It's trying to express something. It's not trying to inform you something directly or something of use. It's trying to engender some sort of notion in your mind. However, if the first line of what she'd written was actually quoted speech, this is perfectly acceptable, because you would expect a person to actually speak in those terms. So it's like she's confused two things. She's confused informing with a colloquialism, which is something you'd normally get in somebody's speech. So it adds credence to the notion that she's actually talking about herself. She's actually speaking, but she's not put it as speech. She's put it as a proposition, in other words, about Mr. and Mrs. Dursley and where they live. Comment 6. Bereaved of one's parents, catastrophic loss. Marker number 1, actually the first marker, is about being bereaved of one's parents, or colloquially in Arabic, it means to experience a catastrophic loss. I'm not getting my words out today. So this marker wholly correlates to the word much. Thank you very much, she says, yeah, and may indicate the loss of a child stillborn. Well, she did actually have a miscarriage, and this is something that we come on to in a future video. So this may refer to a stillborn that the subject experienced in her first marriage. This notion is highlighted and consolidated in further analyses that I perform on the subject's works, which seem to mirror these aspects of the author's life, which I do come on to as I say. Comment 7, we're coming to the end now. Comment 7, pliancy. This is marker 12 and determination, marker 22. The components of the marker 12 seem almost wholeheartedly concerned with being flexible, adaptable, and determination, which is mentioned in marker 22. This seems to have the subject. This seems to have been the subject's single characteristic and marked her success as such. In the themes, I've added this component to each of the hats that the subject wears in the interpretation, highlighted in the same colour as the marker, i.e. teal. So in other words, the marker that's in the markers at the back is actually coloured in teal. And I've actually highlighted the word much, or highlighted the word pliant as it appears under all the hats in teal as well, so they all match up. It seems to be the glue along with determination alluded to in marker 22 that hold everything together. So the two components, or the two keywords for the subject's life, i.e. J.K. Rowling's life, is pliancy and determination. She's had to be flexible and determined. And if, like I said, if you go read a story on Wikipedia, that certainly comes across. Comment number 8. This is a little point about passing water and spending the night. There's a marker to pass water to urinate, which is it seems incongruous, so it doesn't seem to fit the story. But however, at the time, she actually did have an infant child, so I've put this marker directly borders on the marker 19. So this is marker 20 we're talking about, which is wholly concerned with rearing a child and could be a reference to her infant child requiring attention at night due to needing a nappy change. Yeah, because this woman, I don't know how she managed to do it. Honestly, I think actually only a woman could do it. I mean, I'm a man, and I know we're just sort of linear minded. We're just one track minded. So. Well, I mean, with women, they can sort of like do 10 different things at once, and it certainly comes across. And just hats off to this woman, for what she did, and she actually deserves what she's got. Absolutely amazing. Comment 9, synopsis. So as a synopsis, I'll just talk about everything together. In the reverse analysis, the subject details how she found herself in an untenable marriage, began to write the first pages of the manuscript for Harry Potter while planning her escape, escaped with the manuscript to start a completely fresh page of her life, as it were. Her production of the manuscript continued as she increasingly produced more and more work. While contributing to work on the manuscript, the subject entailed self-doubts periodically, and in the meantime continued to raise her daughter. When the manuscript was accepted, it came as a surprise, but it allowed her to live a life that she could not have expected. In the final chapter of her story, the subject looks back on how it all began, on how pliancy, that's marker 12, coupled with drive and determination, marker 22, were the keys to success. And so there you have J.K. Rowling encapsulated, a bit like her character. What was the name of her character? The Lord Voldemort. How Tom Riddle was actually held in the pages of an enchanted book. So moving on to themes. So themes are broken down into the various people that are involved in the story. So first of all, we've got Joanne as a wife, Joanne as a person in her own right, Joanne as a breadwinner, Joanne as a mother, Joanne as an author, husband, marriage, book, original situation, and final situation. And I don't propose to actually go over all of those. I'll let you go over them yourself. What I'll just concentrate on is I'll just concentrate on one of them, which is Joanne as a person in her own right. So you see her skill set, all the components. So all of these keywords that I've got in the themes section are all of the components or the various individual bits from the markers at the back of the report. So I've just pulled them out and put them into a summary in themes. So for Joanne as a person in her own right, I'll just read out the list. I've got aim, alert, bewildered, boundaries, i.e. set, brood, certainty, calm down, change direction, conceal, determined, dispel, divert, dodge, escape, feebleness, flee, glow, happy, have enough, head for, hide, increase, languish, loquacious, make use of, magnanimity. That's an interesting word. Manage, plan, pliant. Proud, stand, raise hopes. Reassurance, reflect. Roll, smooth. Retribution. Search, shelter, i.e. seek shelter. Shelter temporarily. Stand erect, solace. Spare no efforts. Steer, turn away. Thrive, uncertainty. And the uncertainty actually it parallels or contrasts with certainty that I've just already mentioned. It's like she had ambivalence for a time. She had like conflicting states of being in herself at the same time. Weakness and zeroing on. So that's all I have for you today. J.K. Rowling in the first line of her book, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, which really seems to be nothing more than an autobiography of her own life in the reverse analysis. If you like the content, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. The buttons are down below. And I look forward to seeing you in the next analysis, which hopefully should be it should be on a famous murderer. I won't say any more than that, and I'll let you know in due course through the subscriptions. Have a nice day.